Vayimaen, which has meant to many of us, or most of us, the stubborn refusal to succumb to the enticements of the Yetzer Hara. When a person is faced with an asayon, with a test which can compromise his spiritual integrity, he is being encouraged by the concept of Vayimaen to turn away and not succumb. However, there's another dimension which is extremely important and pivotal, which also is under the umbrella appreciation of Vayimaen. And that is not to allow one's self into a situation which can bring to a compromise in one's spiritual integrity. We know, for example, in Kellen, the Alter of Kellen of Simcha Zisel instructed the townspeople concerning their marketplace that the men would shop on the right side of the street and the ladies on the left side of the street, all in order to thwart any situation which can bring to a compromise in one's appreciation of Vayimaen. We know that in the Mir, the exact same thing existed. In fact, if a fellow would shop on the ladies' side, they would call it Kederach Adarshonim, homiletically, they would call it Yichud. In Gateshead, they have hours of the day when the girls' seminary can shop, and no men from the yeshiva, no fellas or boys or men, may shop in the supermarkets during those hours. Again, this is a chizuk, a strengthening of the Vayimaen, taking it to the next level of not only when you're confronted with an asayon, but in order not to lead to an asayon, to a test of compromising. Rabbi Avigdor Miller's father-in-law, Rabbi Lessin, was told to get out of the building where they lived because there was a fire. They knocked on the door, Rabbina, out. And he didn't leave. And they opened the door and they saw he was putting on his bow tie and his top hat. He called it a cylinder. And then he exited because he felt that as a Rav, he has to always, even in such a situation, a fire alarm, but another half a minute or so, I must look presentable. The same Rabbi Lessin, a few days later, was seen in the hallway without his top hat, without his bow tie, his shirt out of his pants. And they asked him, "What happened? Where are you? Rebbe, what's the matter?" And he said, "What don't you understand? The Ozeret, the house girl, has now entered to clean my house. I have no right to be there." That's how serious Rabbi Lessin took the inyan of Yichud, which really is the umbrella appreciation of what we're trying to bring to your attention. Rav David Rappaport, who was skin and bones, my father told me he was the Rebbe in Branovich by Reb Elchanan. The fellas saw one time that he jumped headfirst out of the window. And they went out over to him, "Rebbe, what's the matter?" He said, "A female has entered my room. And if a female entered my room, I must be out of there as quick as possible." Again, this concept of Yichud. In fact, the Gemara in Bava Basra brings down, the person has a way of accomplishing that which he wants to accomplish. And that way would not put him in harm's way. But there's another way which puts him in harm's way. He's called wicked. He's called a rasha if he goes in the way which can possibly lead to a compromise in his spiritual integrity. The tachlis of Vayimaen is two. Number one, to be strengthen ourselves, not to succumb to the Yetzer Hara when faced with an asayon. And number two, perhaps even more important, not to bring to a situation which will necessitate possibly a choice between chas v'shalom doing an aveira or vanquishing the Yetzer Hara and going in the path of the straight and narrow.